For the longest time, sales was always considered a vocation. It was very rarely considered a career path. You have an MBA in marketing, MBA in finance, you have an MBA in HR, you have an MBA in agriculture management, but you don't have an MBA in sales.
What's your take on a PMF and when do you know you have one?
It's definitely more art than science, I'd say. It's easy to explain PMF in hindsight, but like when you're in the moment, it's very hard to sort of exactly see those signals and very clearly identify them. And there's a CRM called Follow a Boss in the US. Great guys, damn good CRM, only built for real estate. I saw that CRM, I'm like, these guys would do so well in other industries. They didn't bother. They sold to Zillow a couple of years back for $500 million. It's nuts.
So, welcome to Edbound with Kenna. Rishabh, I am so pleased to have you here. I've heard, uh, the entire 1.5 hour long presentation that you kind of did. It was such a masterclass and so many great things.
Thank you.
So, I'll tell you that the theme here or the idea here is that we are trying to build a new type of a GTM motion for anybody doing B2B enterprise SaaS sales. And the idea is that people can build their GTM motion not just as a pure outbound, inbound method of the old world, but they can kind of layer it with deep educational content that improves CAC, that improves retention. You can actually get someone to move from just top of the funnel to conversion very fast and in a much better way.
Super. No, thanks for having me, Kinner. It's the first time I'm doing something like this. So, but, excuse any rough edges on my side. But it's been like I have about 12 years of work experience overall. I started my career in venture capital in 2012. And I think back then I'm the analyst type persona. So I love details. Like that's just something that works well with me. Like most people open up a Google Doc or I open a spreadsheet. So my brain works in Excel, and I think I have this weird knack for being both left and right brain in terms of just loving structure, but also having some room for creativity. And in my early days in my VC career, I just loved getting into details in terms of just analysis, market research, or building financial models, right? And then SquadStack happened with a bunch of my co-founders who were most of them were friends from my college, and we were a super young 10 people team. And I jumped in without any background of sales and marketing, really. It was all just learning from the ground up. And we were 25. We had no idea what was good or not. And we just sort of ran with a bunch of experiments. And it's been, 9 years since. I think what kept me going was like just my personal evolution in terms of just seeing how the market's changing from how I used to be like one of the most pushy salespeople because I was just like follow up, follow up, follow up. And while that persistence paid off, I think over time, I transitioned myself into almost of a consultant because even till date, what that's done is now, like 2 years later, clients remember you, even if that deal didn't work out at the time. They remember you and saying, "Hey, you know, I loved our chat, and can you help me think about this?" Or sometimes people are just curious about what's going on in the market and they want your help. And I think that sort of made me realize that today modern sellers are not salespeople. We are consultants. It's our job to understand client issues, diagnose them very, very well, have a very good understanding of the market we're operating in. And I think that learning has kept me going because I just love learning stuff about what's going on in my industry, but also what are best practices in selling. And I think that combination, when you feel rewarded with that in a sales meeting, when a client is like, wow, you asked me questions that no one's asked me before, or you made me think so much about this that no one's done before, or you challenged me on these assumptions that no one's done before. I think that keeps me going because it's a lot of fun. Like a lot of sellers say, I got into sales because I like helping people. And I think that's actually one of the most rewarding parts of sales, more than the money and everything else that comes with it. I think just the ability to go and solve someone's problems is extremely gratifying. So I think that's what's kept me going. I know I sort of took a meandering route to answer a story question, but yeah, that's what keeps me going every day in terms of saying, how can I best solve our customers' problems on a day-to-day basis?
Fantastic. I think it makes sense. It's important to know the story and super interesting to know that you came from a VC background that had a lot of analytical outlook attached to the role itself. So, jobs to be done, another interesting framework you'd mentioned, and you referred a book as well. Can you elaborate on that and talk a little bit more?
So, jobs to be done is one of my favorite first principles, and it's a very common thing, right? It's not
Mm.
rocket science. It's essentially people buy your product or service to complete a job, right? In very simple words, there are three aspects of a job. There's a functional aspect of a job, which is what is it letting you do. There's an emotional aspect of a job. So, functional aspect of a job, most people get. Like I buy a car to go from point A to point B. So, you're not buying a car to do anything else. You're just buying a car to go from point A to point B. And maybe there are subsets with that, right? You buy an SUV because you want to off road. You buy a minivan because you have kids who want to go to soccer practice or whatever, right? Like so, use case by use case. That's the functional use case. Now, most people get the functional use case. Most people articulate the functional use case. The gap typically is the emotional and the social use case. Emotional use case is how is it making me feel while doing this job? And the social use case is how is it making me look while doing this job? And the big mistake that sometimes, several times, marketers as well as sellers make is that they articulate the functional aspect of the job, but they don't describe the emotional and the social aspect of the job. Because ultimately, how something makes me feel and how something makes me look is how most value proposition is articulated or should be articulated, because as people we make emotional decisions. Most buying decisions
So,
are emotional.
I have a question that I want to ask here. It's a
Yeah,
brilliant framework. Now, let's just pick this example of a company helping automobile companies
sure,
creating better pictures, right? So, jobs to be
sure,
done. Functional,
right,
we get to create a great image that people would look at and want to buy a car.
yeah.
Emotional, would you say that it's like it's
So my workload has reduced so much. I feel like this manual work that used to take me hours is now gone. The
I don't need
constant fear,
designers.
the constant fear I had about variability in design is gone. I have brand safety. I have brand guidelines that are followed. I have speed and efficiency, which lets me focus on the more important things. So there are I'm giving examples because I'm hypothesizing here. I don't know the exact product.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's a great example. Another, like, I think if I take a simpler example, CRM, right? Like, what's a CRM supposed to do? Like, functionally, you're supposed to stay in touch with
records.
customers.
Yeah,
How does
records
it
of your
make you feel
customers.
though? Yeah, but it makes me feel like I'm in control. It makes me feel like I know exactly
Yeah.
what I need to do, right? So that's how, if I positioned a CRM as a tool that lets you stay in control of your follow-ups, that is a much better feeling. How does it make me look? It makes me look like I'm an accountable salesperson. I beat my quota and I look like one of the best salespeople on the team because I'm very
Mm.
disciplined with my follow-up and my CRM. Most salespeople hate the CRM, but point being that you articulate on the emotional and the social aspect of whatever your product is serving.
Yeah.
And that is a very, very important point of any positioning or demo or articulation of the value that we provide. We very focused on, this is my feature, it does these nice things, but you forget what it means to the other side from an emotional and a social standpoint.
Hmm. No, powerful stuff, man. So super, super impressive stuff. Let's go from a GTM focus to, sales. And let me just confess that it has been one of the one of the big failures of my, experience as an entrepreneur, not to be able to always hire the best guy. Sometimes when I hired them, I don't know, for some reason the attrition's like so high in the sales domain. Do
Yeah.
you vibe with that? Do you agree that that's like not just me, who's kind of
Oh, yeah.
specifically?
For sure, 100%. So look, it's a it's a difficult role for a number of reasons. Right? One is that in a lot of places, and I'll take India as an example, but even the world in general, right? For the longest time, sales was always considered a vocation. It was very rarely considered a career path. And this is reflective of our business schools as well, right? You have an MBA in marketing, you have an MBA in finance, you have an MBA in HR, you have an MBA in agriculture management, but you don't have an MBA in sales, right? Because sales was always considered a vocation for a lot of people because of how the industry was structured. And even today, there's very little academic research from that standpoint in selling. Now, that ultimately starts to reflect in the value that's prescribed to selling as a career for a lot of people. Unfortunately, for entry level roles, sales is a great place for a lot of people to start their careers. Like there was so much research on how some of the best CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are actually salespeople before, and they
Yeah.
rose through the ranks, right? So it is one of those best paths. Unfortunately, it is a difficult career. It's like any career. If you have to really make it, it is not easy. Now, there are two sides to this, right? Which is one, how do I hire the right salespeople? Second is that, is my product ready for those salespeople? And I think sometimes, I have seen founders make this mistake of saying, somehow if I just hire a seller, my life will get solved. And this person's responsibility is to sell my product, no matter how shitty or not ready my product is, right? From a market standpoint. And so that's the first problem, right? Like you start pouring fuel on the fire when you are not ready for it. And no matter how good a salesperson someone is, no one can sell a bad product or a product that the market isn't ready for, or a product that is not ready to compete with what the market is already offering, right? So no seller can do that. And so it's sometimes founders misplaced notion that somehow a seller can come in and do it, which is why founder-led sales becomes very important in early days, right? You as a founder
Yeah.
have to get in there and find a way to get a few early customers, paying customers who are validating the problem that you're solving, who are giving you signals of product market fit. You understand what the market needs. And then don't hire a VP, hire a junior person, someone like with maybe 2 to 5 years of experience, who will help you, accelerate this product market fit discovery. This person may not even immediately carry a quota, because it's a lot of pressure to put on someone when you don't yourself know where your product is landing, right? Like this is sometimes a notion that it sometimes doesn't work. So you that's one of the reasons why salespeople fail. The second is that you hire incorrectly. Like you hire someone from a branded place, for someone who has far more experience than you
Yeah.
probably need, and they come from a really large brand. And so look, someone, if your salesperson is from Oracle or IBM, they're not going to work in your startup. And again, this is not me saying, this is very age old gyan that's come out, right? So we typically have this tendency to look for brands and say, oh, they've sold this product, and that's a big mistake, because the brand sells itself over time. I think the third thing is just, the this person typically is an entrepreneur, early sellers, right? Like from a culture standpoint, you want someone who is okay with variability, with things not being perfect, with just stuff getting built out. And a quota carrying blue-blooded seller will just be like, oh my God, there's nothing here, right? Like that is a person you bring when you have, let's say, 5 people on. So early days, you bring on someone who's extremely entrepreneurial, high energy, okay to work with, broken systems, broken processes, just has a crazy bias for action. So that's the third piece, which is, are they a cultural fit from an early stage employee standpoint? And I think yeah, so I think those are the big ones. I think there's another fourth one, which may just be an India problem. I've seen that people, because sales is a commission carrying role,
Yeah.
right? In a lot of cases, people put ridiculous commission splits of base variable where someone is squeezed out, and it causes more harm than good, because I'm a fundamental believer that, people should be paid fairly and enough of a base so that you're not worrying about putting food on the table. No one wants, everyone, as an individual, you need psychological safety in order to do your best work. If you have that, which means you're paid reasonably well, you will perform much better. If you're constantly worried about, making money to put food on the table, you may end up mis-selling, you may end up, selling or doing the wrong things. And I think that's also something that I've seen as one of the challenges, especially in early stages, right? Late stages, you have a product market fit, motion, you have a bunch of quota carrying reps, your quota numbers are hitting, the math works, you can show that as proof, great, do it then, right? Early stages, forcing someone down that path, yeah, causes attrition as well.